A silent room. An old vinyl crackles. Wanda Jackson sits beneath the faded glow of her living room lamp, her story finally poised to step into the light. It took 87 years, and a lifetime of thunder in her voice, for Wanda Jackson to decide, enough silence. Tonight, she intends to break it all, starting with a single truth she's never dared to share. For more than 6 decades, the queen of rockabilly carried a secret stitched into the fabric of her career. A secret born on tour buses and backstage corners, whispered to her by none other than Elvis Presley himself. It was more than a personal memory. It was a warning, a map, and in many ways, the reason her life unfolded the way it did. Wanda Jackson's story is not the typical tale of fame and glory people expect when they think of music legends. Hers is a story of fire and defiance, but also of silence, heartbreak, and erasure. She did not simply step into the spotlight. She fought her way into it. Born in 1937 in the dusty stretches of Oklahoma, Wanda grew up far from the polished stages of Nashville. Her father, a quiet but determined man, gave her a guitar when she was a young girl. That guitar became her voice, her armor, and her way of surviving in a world that insisted women belonged in the background. By the time most kids were still figuring out who they were, Wanda was already standing in front of microphones, her voice sharp, raw, and fearless. The music industry at the time was a man's world. Women were expected to smile politely, sing softly, and stay in their lane. But Wanda Jackson refused to play by those rules. She wasn't interested in being sweet or safe. Her songs were bold, laced with grit and rebellion. And that boldness is exactly what caught the attention of a rising star in 1955. A young Elvis Presley. Meeting Elvis was a turning point. He wasn't just a famous singer. He was a spark that ignited something deeper in Wanda. Elvis saw the fire in her and told her what no one else dared say. Sing the way you want to sing. Don't let them tame you. Those words changed everything. Wanda embraced a new sound, one that fused country with rock, innocence with danger, sweetness with bite. Her songs like Let's Have a Party and Mean Mean Man shattered expectations. They were loud, defiant, and unapologetically female at a time when women weren't allowed to be any of those things. Distorted guitars screamed behind her, and her voice carried an attitude rarely heard from women in music. But with every step she took toward freedom, the industry pushed back harder. Executives labeled her music too dangerous. They pressured her to soften her image, to dress less boldly, to sing more like a lady. Wanda stood her ground, refusing to bow to their demands. Behind the applause and the flashing lights, however, there was another story unfolding. One Wanda never told the public. It began with Elvis handing her a folded note during a quiet moment backstage. The note contained names, warnings, and a single line that would haunt her for the rest of her life. If you fight them, they'll freeze you out. If you beat them, they'll pretend you never existed. But if you outlast them, they'll come crawling. Don't sign their silence. Don't sell your sound. Wanda kept that note hidden for decades, pressed between the pages of her family Bible. At the time, she didn't fully understand the weight of Elvis's words. But as the years unfolded, she learned exactly what he meant. The music industry was not just competitive. It was ruthless. Behind closed doors, deals were struck not to uplift artists but to control them. For women, the rules were even harsher. The moment Wanda refused to play by those rules, the machinery turned against her. As the 1960s dawned, Wanda Jackson found herself quietly pushed to the edges of the spotlight she had fought so hard to claim. Radio stations stopped playing her songs. Concert opportunities dried up. Her name began to vanish from the histories of rock and country she helped build. Male artists she had inspired were rising to fame. Yet Wanda's contributions were being erased. Contracts were altered. Credits disappeared. Entire recordings were buried. The message was clear. She was too loud, too independent, too unwilling to be molded. But Wanda Jackson was never one to surrender. If the industry thought it could silence her, they underestimated her resilience. She shifted to gospel music in the 1970s, not as a retreat, but as a way to keep her voice alive. Gospel gave her freedom to sing without compromise, and it gave her time to think, to reflect, and to gather evidence of everything she had endured. Quietly, she began saving letters, contracts, and statements, proof of the injustices she faced. And always, at the center of it all, was Elvis's note. The deeper Wanda looked, the clearer the picture became. The music industry wasn't just indifferent to women like her. It actively erased them. Behind the smiling public image was a system built on exploitation and silence. Artists were used until they no longer fit the mold, and then they were discarded, their stories rewritten or forgotten altogether. Wanda's defiance didn't just cost her opportunities. It cost her the recognition she deserved for decades. The years rolled on, and Wanda's fight turned quieter but never stopped. In the 1980s and 90s, strange things began happening. Silent phone calls in the middle of the night, cancelled interviews without explanation, rumors of blacklists whispered among her peers. Conversations with contemporaries like Johnny Cash confirmed what Wanda suspected. She wasn't imagining it. There was a system in place, one that monitored and muted artists who refused to conform. Yet Wanda held her ground, sharing her story in bits and pieces with younger musicians who sought her guidance. By 2019, those quiet conversations began stirring something bigger. Younger female artists, inspired by Wanda's honesty, started asking hard questions about the industry's past and present. And for the first time, Wanda considered telling the full story. She had boxes of evidence, letters, contracts, recordings, and she was ready to finally reveal them. But as word spread, publishing deals fell through. Interviews were cancelled at the last minute. Every time Wanda got close to speaking out, unseen forces intervened. The demand was always the same. Remove any mention of Elvis's note and the powerful names it exposed. Wanda refused. Silence had been forced on her long enough. Then, in 2021, fate intervened. In a dusty archive in Austin, Texas, researchers uncovered unreleased demo reels and contracts from the 1960s and 70s. Among them was a lost 1964 recording, a raw ballad titled, "I'll Sing It Anyway." The song, defiant and unpolished, carried a message unmistakably aimed at the industry that had tried to control her. The discovery should have been cause for celebration, but instead it triggered a legal battle. Attempts to release the track were met with swift takedowns, as though the industry still feared Wanda's voice even decades later. By early 2023, Wanda had reached a decision. Sitting in her Oklahoma home, she recorded an unfiltered 3-hour testimony. A video originally meant for her family but destined to become something more. In it, she recounted everything. Her early rise, the pressures to conform, the moment she refused to sign away her publishing rights, the threats she endured, and the officials who offered her hush money to quietly disappear. For the first time, she read Elvis's note aloud, her voice steady but heavy with memory. "If you fight them, they'll freeze you out. If you beat them, they'll pretend you never existed. But if you outlast them, they'll come crawling. Don't sign their silence. Don't sell your sound." Those words echoed across generations. They were more than Elvis's warning. They were Wanda's truth. 4 years, she had been frozen out. 4 years, the industry had pretended she didn't exist. And yet, through sheer will, she had outlasted them all. Today, Wanda Jackson's story is finally surfacing. Not because the industry decided to honor her, but because she chose to speak. Her life reveals the hidden cost of being a pioneer, especially a woman in a man's world. It shows the courage required to keep singing when every door slams shut and every credit is stripped away. And it reminds us that legends are not only made on stage but in the quiet, unglamorous fights no one sees. Wanda's fight is far from over, but her voice, raw, fiery, unapologetic, remains unbroken. At 87, she isn't asking for applause or belated recognition. She's demanding truth. And in doing so, she has become more than the queen of rockabilly. She's become a symbol of survival and defiance for every artist who refuses to be silenced. If you've been moved by Wanda Jackson's story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps bring more untold stories like hers into the light, ensuring that the voices the world tried to erase are finally heard.